Hobbyist here, back at it again, and this time we are going to be going over a Nemesis character guide. So here in the base game, you decided that you wanted to go with the captain. How does he work, and what is kind of the best ways that you want to strategize with him? That's what this is all about. So the first thing I want to go over, as far as the structure of Nemesis goes, is that there's a lot of things in Nemesis that you can't control. You can't control what player card that you're going to get, so that's going to affect when you're going to be able to draft characters. But the one thing that you're going to want to think about when selecting the captain is base it on the objectives that you have. In any standard game, you're always going to have one corporate and one personal objective that you're going to choose which one that you're going to complete, but it gives you options of, okay, which character do I think is going to work best? Now, here's just some of the objectives that I'm going to show you. This is from the base game that I would recommend that you would want to select the captain for. Have any of these corporate objectives to where a specific player number has to die, or you have to be the only lone survivor, I would recommend picking the captain, because with the way that his deck is structured is that while he is a support role, he also has the ability to use his authority as the captain to his advantage to get somebody in specific killed. So that would be the best way to go when it comes to him. At the same time, while it could be good to be hostile and to get somebody in particular killed as the captain, it also does a really good job of enabling you to help at least one other survivor survive. So if you want to be not so much as a cruel individual, if you don't want to be suspicious, you want to take the best friends forever objective, I would recommend going with the captain, because he's going to have the cards that support that one character. It's going to enable him to be able to be moved alongside you, and that's really just the main bits. So if you have an objective that has a specific player getting killed, or you're trying to help a specific character survive, the captain is a great choice in that manner. So let's go a little bit into his loadout to kind of explain his strategy, both just on the board and for as far as completing your objective is concerned. Coming down here to the captain's loadout, we can see that he starts with a classic weapon of the 6-shooter. This is very, very, very crucial when it comes to the captain. The captain inside of the base game of Nemesis is the only character in the game that does not have an energy weapon. You can't use energy charges in order to be able to reload your gun. In fact, it's even specific inside of the card itself, because this is the card can only be reloaded with the reload action card. And it's one of those kinds of guns to where when it hits great. So if you ever roll a 2, you're always going to do an additional injury. So for every shot, if you get 6 shots, that's 3 injuries at a time, which is phenomenal. But it's more of a gamble with the 6-shooter. And like I said, because you can't use energy charges, it's a lot more difficult at times to be able to reload your gun. So you have to be able to decide for yourself when is the appropriate time to shoot, when is the appropriate time to run away. That normally is the case for a lot of characters inside of Nemesis, but it's more so true with the captain himself. But before I get to the quest items, I'm going to show you his specific action cards that are different from everybody else inside of Nemesis. When it comes to the captain's action deck, there are specifically 4 of the 10 cards that are specific and only exclusive to him. The first one is Motivation. Motivation is a great card that you're going to want to use if you're trying to keep somebody alive, or if you're trying to help out the group. Sometimes inside of Nemesis, even if your objective is to get somebody killed and play in a bit more hostile kind of way to where you're more so trying to save yourself than anybody else, sometimes it pays to be a little bit more cooperative at times, especially if you can get those negotiations out, because all the characters in the room that you're in, including yourself, will get to draw an action card, and this card is played for free, which is absolutely great. If you're trying to fulfill a corporate objective and get somebody killed, this is the card that you want to have, because Order says that you can choose another character in the room you are in, move that character to a neighboring room of your choice, and you could do that with or without their permission. The key thing with Order is that the symbol that you could see up top here means that you can only do this card when you're not in combat. If there's no aliens in the room, you could do it. Again, this is a great for both sides. If you're playing the best friends forever, and you need to help somebody get moved to a certain place when it's not their turn, you can absolutely do that and set them up. Or you can act like, hey, I'm going to help you move this way. Oh, there's aliens in the room next door? There's a whole bunch of them with no chance of survival? I'll just throw you in that room so that way you die. And there's absolutely nothing that you can do about it, because captain's orders. I mean, what can you really do? So this is a great card to have either for the hostile corporate approach, or if you're trying to be more of a team player. It's entirely up to you. Aggressive Fire is another one that is exclusive just for the captain's sake. You'll see this card show up again with a lot of other characters like the scout or the soldier, but with his, it works the exact same way. You can only use this card while in combat. All these cards that I'm showing you here are free to play, so you don't need to pay any additional cards. So all you do is discard an ammo, and then you or one other chosen character in your room may escape the room without triggering a intruding attack. Again, this card works best either as in trying to save yourself, or if you're in a room with somebody else and there's a lot of aliens, you can leave that person behind and be like, sorry, I value my life more than yours. It works either way. And that's kind of the beauty of a Nemesis action deck, especially with the captain, is that you have options. And the way that I always like to play with my groups whenever I do semi-co-op with them is that if your cards, and your action cards, whenever you're using specifically card actions, is that if it says or, then you could just simply say that I'm going to use this card and not elaborate on which option that you're going to take. It adds that bit of suspense to it. Whereas if the card specifically only says one thing that you can do, then you obviously do that one thing, keep it legal, keep it public. So it adds that bit of stealth, that adds to the overall tension, which I love so much about Nemesis. The card that's inside the captain's deck that is exclusively just to the captain is that same reload card that I was talking about earlier. This card, you're going to need to cycle through your deck a lot in order to get through this, especially if you're in a lot of combat situations, because this is your only way to reload your gun. If you can't reload it, well, as you obviously know, melee is not the best option when it comes to Nemesis, regardless of what character that you are, because you're always getting those contamination cards, and worst case scenario, if you miss the attacks, you're always getting a serious wound every time, regardless of what intruder type it is. So you're going to want to cycle through this card a lot. But just something that I wanted to show you guys. As you can see here, all these cards cost 0. So these are great cards to get in your hand. And 2 of them you can play regardless of if you're in combat or not. Whereas there's one that's combat only, and one that's only when you're not in combat. So all of that is very important when it comes to strategizing as the captain. The thing that I want to go over with the captain when it comes to deciding what's important. Every character in Nemesis, regardless from Aftermath, whether it's from Lockdown, or whether if it's just from the base game here, has quest items that you can unlock at certain points. They're your side quests if you want them. I'd say that a lot of times when it comes to the captain, you want to unlock both of your quest items. The intercom, especially if you're in a situation to where your objective is to get somebody killed, because just look at the requirements here, it's going to cost you 1 card from your hand to activate, but you then need to discard tools or duct tape to activate this item. Now, tools or duct tape essentially are ways that you fix the ship, and sometimes, depending on the objective, you might not even need to do that. And it also just depends on what the circumstances are looking like. So this requirement cost for activating this item isn't bad per se. At least that's not what I would say. When you activate the intercom, let's say that you chose to do that, this is not an item that simply goes in your hand. It doesn't take up a hand slot, so you could just add it to your inventory of items. And all that the intercoms do is that all characters in a room with a computer may additionally be targeted by your order or motivation. Order still only affects a single character. This greatly increases your range to do a whole bunch of different things. If everybody's spread out, chaos is everywhere, again, it increases your range and opportunity to either be more sabotaging to where if the person you're trying to target is 5 rooms over but it has a computer, you could send them into the room with aliens that is next by. Or you could do motivating through the speakers, being like, attention everyone, the ship is going crazy, but we can do this. We are the research team that everybody needs, you know? You kind of add motivation and do it for everybody. It's a great quest item to have, I'd say. So the next quest item that we're going to be talking about is we're going to be talking about the log key. Again, much like the intercom, it only is going to cost you 1 action card from your hand, and you can only activate this item from the comms room. So, if you ever need to use the log key, in any particular situation, or if you have an objective that says send the signal, you might as well activate it there. But the log key does something that is incredibly important that you want to do, and in fact, I would probably unlock the log key before you activate the intercoms first, because of the fact that you might not get a chance to get in the comm rooms again once you go through, and the fact that you can always be searching multiple rooms makes it easier to access the intercoms in comparison to the log key. But why would you need a log key? The log key is an item that's only a one use only, so it's very different from the intercom, which essentially the intercom is a passive ability that always works as long as the quest item is activated. And as you can see here, you can only use this when you're not in combat, so that is something that's also important. So make sure you're not in a room with aliens, otherwise you can't use the log key. So, the thing with the log key is that it's going to cost you one action card to use, then you can use it in a room with a computer. Then choose a player, look at one of their objective cards. Honestly, this card is absolutely useless if you are playing solo or co-op, because everything as far as objectives is public. The key thing that you're going to want to do when it comes to the log key is that you are going to want to get a hold of this early, but do not use it right away, because at the beginning of the game, everybody else still has 2 objective cards and hasn't made a decision on whether they're going to go the corporate route or if they're going to go the personal route. So if you think that they're going to do something, but they discard that card at the end because they know that you looked at it, then it keeps you in the dark and you didn't get anything out of it. Whereas if you wait until that first intruder encounter, where everybody has to decide what objectives that they're going to discard and the other that they're going to keep, then you use the log key, because everyone only has one objective. And then you can kind of decide, depending on what objectives you see, do we strike up an alliance with this person? If, let's say, the scientist has discovering weaknesses as their personal objective, then if you see that with a log key, you can be like, okay, I'm going to help out the scientist in order to fulfill his objective. Sometimes you can use that maliciously, or you can use that in a way that actually benefits the group. It's entirely up to you. So I would say that the log key has its uses in the semi-co-op version, because, like I said, you want to wait until everybody has one objective card before you use it. You don't want to use it early on. So honestly, if I'm comparing the two, I'd say that the intercom is great, both for semi-co-op and cooperatively, whereas the log key is only good from a semi-co-op perspective. It's not great in solo game, it's not great in co-op mode. So that's something that you're going to really keep in mind. Aside from that, though, the captain has the exact same action cards that every other player inside of Nemesis has, regardless of if you're playing either Lockdown, if you're playing Aftermath, or if you're just playing the base game here. It's just that sometimes you just got to pay attention to the action card cost, as that's going to fluctuate from character to character. So overall, what do I think of the captain? Here's kind of my list of pros and cons, and I'll put them up here on the screen for you guys. The captain is great in a semi-co-op. He works the best when it comes to the objectives of trying to get a player killed, specifically because of orders, especially if you have the intercom quest item activated. The log key is also great in semi-co-op, as you can use that after everybody has one objective card to be able to look at that objective and decide, do you want to forge an alliance, or do you kind of want to use that to your advantage to stab that player in the back? But it absolutely sucks in solo. And the captain is kind of okay when it comes to the co-op version. So, honestly, kind of pick and choose how you see fit where you want the captain to be.